Hello, today we're at the Dublin Conversations and we welcome Graham Goodkind. Graham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Graham Goodkind, as you just said. I'm the chairman and founder of Frank PR.
Okay, and how would you describe the work of Frank PR and what you do in your role?
Frank is predominantly a consumer PR agency, so we get approached by clients, mainly consumer brands, products or services, to come up with ideas that get them talked about and positively. And we have this word which is in our kind of ethos and is our trademark as well, called talkability. And our objective is to come up with those ideas that people talk about, either around the water cooler at work or down the pub or dinner parties on weekend. But more importantly than just talkability, that term also implies to sharing or shareability, perhaps, if you like, the sort of things that these days people would share via their WhatsApp groups, via social media, post on Facebook, Twitter, Insta. So coming up with the content that can be part of those conversations that are either physically talked about or shared. I mean, we kind of use talkability as an interchangeable term for all those things. So that's what Frank's all about. We've been doing it for 22nd year. We set up in September 2000, and I've done that for some of the most well-known leading brands, products and services in consumer marketing in the UK.
Okay, thank you. Can we begin what we call our 5 steps to Dublin and really explore how you work, and also really keen to get your ideas about the future of communications and this question of like, what does better look like? Right, so we're witnessing the context is we're witnessing a paradoxical change in communications industry practice of greater fragmentation, yet also convergence. And we need to rethink established ideas like advertising, journalism, marketing, public relations, and more, or replace them with better ones. And we've got new opportunities of new knowledge that we can create a better way of doing. And so how can we co-create new ideas to both do our jobs better and rise to the challenge of tackling society's wider issues of growing distrust, divisive tribalism, or not being able to come together to tackle our big issues. So we're exploring really how can we unlearn some of our existing thinking, discarding ineffective, outdated ideas while embracing new ones. So let's explore this. What does better look like? Let's have a Dublin conversation and take our 5 steps to Dublin.
I mean, I don't agree with all of it, to be honest. I don't think, that agencies necessarily pigeonhole themselves as one thing. I think at Frank, for example, we're completely channel neutral or discipline neutral in terms of coming up with the idea. First, you've got to come up with the idea. And that's always been the principle here. And then, what medium it plays out in or what channel you use to actually get that message across. And it just so happens that sort of earned media tends to be a really good Kickstarter for it. But now potential shared media, social media, paid media, I don't know. We're pretty channel agnostic in terms of the creative process. And then, once you've got the right idea, it's picking the right channel that'll work best in. So I'm not sure. I don't know how other agencies would do. And in terms of our purpose as agencies, I mean, again, maybe it's an old-fashioned view, but my purpose as agency is driven by the client. And if a client is purpose-led in terms of what they want to do, then obviously our communication solution needs to be rooted in that. If they just want to sell more shit, which most clients do, then perhaps it's not. I don't feel the role so strongly in terms of trying to educate clients in that they should be more purposeful. I don't think that's kind of my job. I want them to achieve their objectives. I'm assuming they've thought about that first. If I can do something good at the same time, great. But I'm not going to be completely driven by that idea. I'd prefer that from a personal point of view because I'd like that. So for me, and running an agency, it's driven by the clients. I'm only here, and I've only got an office and staff working out here, and the lifestyle that everyone here can afford. That's only paid for by clients. So we're driven by clients, and if they're purposeful, great. If they're not, okay. They might have a different agenda for whatever the reason. I think deep down as people, most people are, which is a good thing, but the brief might not necessarily come up with that solution. I'm not going to steer that as the solution and try and persuade clients that should be the solution. solution if they don't think it should be, because that they're paying me to act in their best interest. I think the thing that this all misses out as well, just as a wraparound, certainly in an agency world, the thing that drives me is paying the staff out here so they can pay their rent, they can pay their mortgages, and it's to run a profitable business and to run a good, long-term, sound business that's built on a good foundation that can, yes, do a great job, and B, be great for all the stakeholders within it, and that's the employees, the shareholders, all the people we interact with, the suppliers, the clients, and then the other stakeholders in the business. That's my job. And I'm kind of less fussed about the method of doing that, because yes, I'm a PR guy and involved in the comms business, but I'm driven by coming up with solutions that are because I'm accountable to my stakeholders and shareholders.
Yeah. So within the Dublin conversations, we sort of identified this term of purpose, that within it there's a business purpose, which you've described there, of your need to earn money, income, in order to achieve your business goals. We also
Profit.
talk of
it's not. You need to earn more money than you're spending. So
yeah,
you need to make a profit.
Yeah.
Otherwise you haven't got a business and you haven't got any purpose.
Yeah, but beyond that, but also then you have a creative purpose. So, for example, in what you've shared there will be some clients who you as an agency would choose not to work for, even though it could present business opportunities. So there's a context there, perhaps, of
doesn't. I could count on the fingers of one hand. That's happened over 22 years of doing it, that we've chose not to work on a client for reasons of conscience. If it was the case, I'd do it. But I don't know. My view is that I think I don't have to I don't have to believe in every client I work on. I don't have to love their product, brand, or service for every client I work on. I don't have to be a consumer of it. I could work for Coca-Cola and only drink Pepsi. As a fact, we don't work for either at the moment. But we work for Innocent Smoothies, who are part of Coca-Cola, I guess. But I don't have to drink Innocent Smoothies to do the best possible job that I can for them, if you see what I mean. So I don't know. People in this business, I think, get a bit too up their own arse about, we turn down this client, we turn that client. It's bullshit. It doesn't happen very much. And sure, for me, if Vladimir Putin came in tomorrow and said, can you help me out with a bit of PR, I would probably say no to that one. But that would be out of a conscience point of view, as a personal point of view. I just think it might be the wrong thing to do. I think probably most people in this industry would agree with me. Obviously, there's some people that do take his money and work for a lot of his entities, and they stay pretty quiet at the moment. But for me, that would sit uncomfortably, and I wouldn't do it. But that doesn't happen very much. And as I say, fingers of one hand the amount of times it's happened in 20 odd years of Frank.
So with the concept of purpose, as I say, you've forcefully highlighted there about you have a very strong, coherent, compelling business purpose, so reflect on what you shared there, that sometimes actually it's a mixture and an emphasis, where some people may put greater emphasis on business purpose as opposed to maybe a social or creative purpose.
Yeah, look, I mean, yes, as I think I've said what my purpose is as a guy that runs the business. I know where my responsibilities lie, and that therefore drives my purpose. In terms of all this talk about coming up with purpose-led ideas, as I said before, where the brief is that, then we will do that. And as is sort of happening at the moment, more and more briefs are those purpose-led briefs. And you can look at some of the work we've done. Again, Innocent campaign, we've kind of come up with a whole campaign and strategy around rewilding, which is a good purpose-led initiative. We kind of had a great campaign that's won a few awards already this year for Green Flag, where we, came up with the idea to recycle old, lost, abandoned Little Tykes toy cars that were gathering dust or rust or rotting away and decomposing. And we kind of, got Green Flag to rescue all these unused Little Tykes and kind of recycle them so that disadvantaged kids could get a brand new one. So lovely purpose behind that as well, but it has to be part of the brief. And we'll get briefs from Innocent and Green Flag where purpose will not be part of the brief, and it will be sell more, stuff, and it might not be purpose connecting. It's not my job to necessarily say no, you're wrong. It should all be about purpose. I don't think that's right. Our job is to improve the commercial success, the likelihood of a successful commercial outcome for our clients, and that's our job. And across the line, once I'm over the white line, I'll do my best for that client, whether I'm a fan of them myself, whether I love them or hate them. It doesn't make any difference. Once I've crossed that white line, so to speak, to use the football analogy, I'll give it my all, and so will this agency.
So you earlier mentioned about how the agency is not pigeonholed by traditional terms. So would you agree with the point that about we need in today's world a bigger world view than just looking at the world in traditional silos of advertising, public relations, and so on?
Who's we? Who when you say
anyone working in the industry, the world at large?
Well, we call ourselves a PR agency. I would say that's a very loose affirmation of the fact that's kind of where we come from. What is PR these days? There's not really an adequate definition that I've seen for many, many years, but it probably best suits us more than anything. I mean, a lot of people call us a creative agency or creative comms consultancy or stuff like that. To be honest, I don't really care what people call us, but there's a variety of buckets that are out there, and you can put us in, and one of them happens to be PR, and it's probably the most commonly used one. That's why we settle for a PR consultancy, but it could be anything. Yeah. Personally, we're a communication solutions provider that thinks in a more PR, comes at it from a more PR media perspective, but doesn't limit us to that sort of outcome or solution.
Yeah. We can move on a bit more about that, but in the meantime, we tend to sort of, in terms of what you're looking to achieve with your clients and so on, that this is influenced by the work of Professor Daniel Kahneman and others in the behavioral science world, where we recognises we're emotionally driven animals, and if you want to engage and successfully connect with others, you need to get known and noticed, be liked, be trusted, be front of mind, and be talked about. Is any observations there, Graham? Anything missing, or anything you think needs to be emphasised or prioritised?
I mean, I guess it fits. One of those anyway fits right. I mean, they're all pretty interconnected, but obviously Frank's proposition is it's all about being talked about. Hence the word talkability that we have the trademark on. So that's our process, and we've got a whole back end creatively, whole process and methodology in terms of how we go and engineer talkability to get clients talked about. I would say that they're talked about, then they're front of mind, and they're known. I think kind of like to trust them and trust the slightly different briefs, because you don't have to be liked to be talked about. You can be hated and talked about. Piers Morgan, classic example, is probably the TV commentator that we talk about more than anyone. Is he liked? No. He's probably liked and hated in pretty equal measure. Is he trusted? Probably the same in equal measure. Is he front of mind? Yes. Is he talked about? Yes. Is he known and noticed? Yes. So I think those three are much more, kind of one and the same sort of thing. Liked and trusted are slightly different objectives and slightly different tasks, because you're assuming that maybe in a lot of times there'll be brands or clients that will come about that aren't liked or disliked or aren't trusted and need to be trusted. That's going to be good for business.
Could you argue Piers Morgan, in the case you mentioned Piers Morgan, that actually there's, as you say, some people like him, but equally there's another body of people who like to dislike him, and that the one issue is that he engages with you so that he gets noticed, whereas the enemy would be of that opposite. That would be bland. So that people like Piers Morgan trade off both being liked and also the fact the paradox of people like to dislike them. Is there any views in that as well?
No, I agree with it. Look, I mean, who was it? Oscar Wilde said it's better to be talked about than not talked about, or whatever it was, something like that. So, I think certainly someone like Piers might follow that person. I think he knows it, he plays it. He's got his brand. He's got a personal brand, Piers Morgan, and he is a pretty shrewd guy, I think, in terms of managing his own brand and now doing stuff and taking roles that really work for him from his brand point of view. But he knows he's liked and trusted and disliked and not trusted in probably equal measure. But I think he thinks it's more important. Kind of that's good, and he'll play to it, and he'll deliberately wind people up so he's disliked more by some people because they love to dislike him, like you say.
We'll move on to step 3, and we referenced before about channel neutral. What we're suggesting here is that 5 open choices go beyond channels, but choices that identify how you connect with others. So own, for example, is not just your own channels, but also your own behaviors, your reputation, even, as I say, spending time with someone can help earn trust. So own is a much bigger concept there, as well as a paid for, which is a bigger concept than advertising. Earned, which is a bigger concept than earned editorial, and a nudge, a new element in the model there about making simpler for people's choices. You may not directly communicate with them, but you can influence outcomes by influencing the choices available to them. And lastly, shared there. Do you think that any comments there about terms of the merit of that, or anything lacking now? Any thoughts?
No, it's good. I mean, all different, like you say, different methods of connecting. I wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah. And then we're still about sort of in terms of how we interact with the world. A very simple model here. It's called the listen, connect, do, where we listen, connect, do. And I know from your work, you're outstanding in terms of the numerous industry awards for creativity. And how important do you think is the listening dimension to being effective in the work you do?
I mean, massive. I mean, in terms of from a personal point of view, I've always kind of got my best ideas and thinking listening to a client explaining their problem, and asking clients more questions and then listening more, and very often I'll get the nugget of what a great idea might be actually in that first session. The client almost has a brilliant ability to do that. Then when we're in internal sessions within Frank, where we're trying to come up with ideas, it's not so much a brainstorming, which is like generally conceived as a rush for an idea. Yeah. It's nothing like that at all. What we'll do is we'll have a massive general conversation. Luckily, we've got quite a varied, diverse base of employees here that we can bring together in a room in one place, and we'll have a discussion about the subject, that category, or the brand or the industry they're involved in, and just an open discussion. And just by listening to people and their different perceptions, or their different likes and dislikes, or their different takes on that particular brand, category, or market, actually is a brilliant way of forging conversations and come up with good ideas. Listening is brilliant. I mean, listening is to me, one of the most fundamental parts in terms of the creative process, because that's your jumping off point. That's where you get your impetus from, your different views, different outlets that provide the sort of like the raw materials for you to work with to try and come up with an idea from.
And you previously mentioned about like labels in the industry and maybe their significance and so on. A term that's emerged is this word comms, which a number of people use, but doesn't seem to have any formal definition. And one suggestion from the Dublin conversations is that a formal definition is how we comms about how to create confidence by managing perceptions around future behaviours. Is there any views about this term comms and how you see it? How would you define it? How you see it used?
It's a catch-all term for communications, isn't it? So I don't know, but your definition. I mean, again, I'm not really that fussed about definitions. Yeah. I just want to know what clients call us. I don't try and I don't mind, as long as I'm perceived as a comms agency or integrated communications agency, a PR agency, and a media agency. I don't care. Honestly, I don't. I'm not sure it's that useful to try and define it, because it might mean different things to different people, and that's okay by me.
Yeah, no problem. And we're saying also that there seems to be two prime instincts that drive people's responses. There's a we-led instinct where people think of like the communal collective good as a first response, as opposed to like a me-led, where it's a thing of self-interest. I just wonder if any thoughts about that at all in terms of these, maybe that we-led could maybe be a foundation stone for what people label public relations practice, and me-led could maybe be a foundation for what people more advertising-led. Just wonder any thoughts there.
As I've said, I'm not that interested in how you define it. People just know what it is. I think I'm not sure a definition is that useful either way. No, as methods of thinking, I think naturally some people are selfish and some people are community spirited. I mean, that's the kind of what you're saying here. And you'll appeal to, if you're devising a campaign for a client, again, it's about the idea, not the channel. That's why I don't get preoccupied about whether it's advertising, PR, whatever it's about. For me, it's, what is an idea that's going to turn on we-led people? What's an idea that's going to turn on me-led people, get them talking? And is there an idea that actually gets them both talking? Great. That might be a good way of doing it. But I think the way you've got that kind of, broken that down, I think it's quite good. I think me-led, I think it's not just me, it would be me and my family led, although that's not as catchy. It might be, there would be self-interest of me and my loved ones, not just me. So I think that might be maybe a third, or a subset part of me-led, but and we-led again in terms of that, there might be a subset. We, as in, could be including my family, could be my community, my locality, my country, or my world. I think there's different levels within all of those things, and obviously there's a lot of campaigns, climate change or whatever, that's trying to appeal to we, as in everyone in the world, because we're all screwed if the environment's screwed. Whereas other sort of campaigns, I don't know, a Brexit campaign was we, as in the UK, or we, as in Europe. So there's different subsets within we and me that may be worth exploring.
Okay, good stuff there. And then a final step really is about how let's mention something about trust, and the Dublin Conversations identifies this idea of purposeful trust that exists between those who are disengaged and those who are over trusting, which at least lead to naivety, at worst dogma, bias and prejudice. And this idea of a purposeful trust where you're open to understanding to others is essential for our society to function. And just really thoughts about that in terms of, we mentioned there about the communications and going forward, that we need to be more mindful, not just of like what we're trying to influence, but also how we impact upon this purposeful trust in our society. Just want any thoughts on that at all, Graham?
I don't know. I don't really understand it, to be honest.
Well, let me elaborate. So the idea is that we're able to coexist, cooperate, or collaborate through the fact that there's this existence of a trust that enables us to be open to others. And therefore, but the challenge we've got is that this is increasingly being
you can coexist, cooperate, or collaborate without it, can't you?
Well, not necessarily, because like coexist might be that if I don't trust you, that as soon as I turn my back, you're going to stab me in the back or whatever.
Communication, but you still communicate with you because you know where you stand with someone. No, I mean, I think there's plenty of people I don't trust as far as I could throw, including some people I've known for years. But it doesn't mean I can't communicate and have a laugh with them. I just know the levels to which I can go with them or take certain things with. No.
Yeah. Okay, as I say, it's all about insight in terms of exploring the space of how we connect with people.
Well, I mean, in communications, I think most people don't trust anything, or a lot of people don't. Not most. I don't know the stats, but a lot of people don't trust anything. I don't. And I'm right on the inside of it. Do I trust the newspapers I read? Well, no. I'm kind of, I might flick through the Daily Mail. I know they don't include certain things because they've got an agenda. Same as the Sun, don't include things because they've got an agenda. Same as the Guardian, don't include it, even though it's a more worthy paper. That don't include stuff because it's not on their agenda. I know if I look on social media, I kind of, you know, I know Twitter's obviously got its issues in terms of censorship and certain things that it excludes. I know Facebook has. I know other forms of social media have. You know, I don't know how people are skewing the algorithms to get certain results showing up to me. I know, you know, people are talking about using Google, then Google's listening to you, so it knows what you're searching for. There's that element of distrust that people are flicking up ads based on, you know, conversations that you're having, that somehow the phone is hearing them, and then, you know, and then showing ads to you that, you know, I mean, I don't think anyone trusts anything anymore, do they?
Well,
I don't. I mean, why should you? I mean, it's, you know, every little sneaky technique in the book is being adopted by anyone that they can to try and influence and change sometimes opinion and attitudes. I mean, it seems to be fair game. Everyone's doing it, so you're kind of aware. But then you're, you know, as far as I'm concerned, my deflector shields are cranked up to full blast light. They probably, you know, are with lots of other people.
But I think what may have, so in our earlier step, we talked about known, like, trusted, front of mind being talked about. So in the instances you mentioned about friends, so you've got likability, that you like them, so therefore you may not trust them, but you still like them to engage with. Or there might be known brands that you don't like them, you don't trust them, but at least you know of them and know what their function is or what they can do for you. So I'm just wondering whether that help sort of contextualize some of the points you made there.
No, yeah, of course. Look, I've got my Apple phone here. Do I like Apple? Well, I'm pretty, you know, do I like it? Yes. You know, I like it. It's a brand. It's cool design. I've been using their products for years. Do I trust them? Well, no, I don't really know them. So no, I don't trust them. I don't massively distrust them, but I'd certainly, you know, take whatever they said with a pinch of salt, because it's obviously so, you know, I mean, it's kind of, I don't think you need to have those things. I mean, would it help any more if I trust them? Well, probably not. I still buy their product. I'll buy the next iPhone when it comes out. I'll, you know, like some of their apps. I don't know. I kind of think it depends.
My suggestion would be that what we're highlighting here is that that the 5, what we call the rules of known, like, trusted, front of mind, being talked about, provide a framework for how you engaged. But within the concept of trust, there resides a deeper asset for our society, that our society can only function if we have this idea of purposeful trust, that at some point you're open to understanding, and the danger is that if you're either in the disengaged stage or the over with a very specific narrow field of what you trust.
Well, society functions at the moment. Look, politics. I've just got it flicked up on Sky at Boris Johnson trying to defend himself yet again. Yeah, no one trusts politicians. Yeah, our country still functions. I mean, pretty poorly at the moment, admittedly, but it still functions. I think it'll function without it. You know, I think it's maybe, you know, I don't know. It'd be lovely to think about. It's a bit of a utopian view to think that things, you know, we can only have social cohesion if everyone trusts everything everyone says, and it's got, you know, it's purposeful trust, as you call it. I don't know. I mean, it's lovely, you know, kind of North Star to have, but, you know, to follow, but I don't think it really is realistic.
Yeah. Graham, as I said, the conversation is to elicit different views and comments. So, I mean, and what we add into is the
lovely academic view. It's a lovely academic view, but I mean, I'm practical. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and finally, I mean, we've taken you these 5 steps. We've had a very full and wide-ranging conversation. In terms of what does better look like in the future, has it been helpful in any way being more confident or being more aware of some of the dimensions about what does better look like?
I still don't really know what better looks like. I mean, the industry and this job's been bloody brilliant. And I don't know, I can never imagine it getting better. What would better look like? I mean, it's just more people from Frank doing more wonderful work, doing great campaigns, having more fun than they could have imagined having, going on to have stellar careers, whether they set up their own agencies, breeding the next generation of great communicators in the future. That's what better looked like, but it's kind of, that's what it's been for the last few years. So no, it's pretty bloody good at the moment, mate.
What would what's the wider better needed to realise that specific better you've described there?
For me, Arsenal winning the league and Champions League.
We're talking about better, not the impossible, my friend. And talking about Dublin conversations, clearly, I say the whole point of these conversations is to listen, learn, and be challenged. Any specific suggestions of what we should do different from what we've said and shared in our conversation so far?
I don't know. Look, again, as I said to you before we did this, I'm not a particularly academic guy. I'm a intuitive, gut feel thinker, creative, I guess, as opposed to a deeply analytical. I'm pretty strategic, but I don't wade through piles of data to come up with an idea. I'm much more based on what I see, observe, listen, as you talked about in here. So I can't, I sort of see these things and I kind of get a bit, this is complicating it a little bit too much. I think sometimes this is a very uncomplicated job and an uncomplicated thing we do when it relies on a lot of the, kind of emotional intelligence as opposed to academic intelligence, which is why I get a bit daunted by things like these Dublin conversations. I get a bit scared because academically, I'm nothing special, as I've said to you, but emotionally intelligence wise, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on things. So academically, I kind of struggle, and maybe there's a bit more emotional intelligence stuff that needs to be injected. I don't know.
And any specific action steps we need to take, Graham, in terms of how we go forward in this and making this more effective for ourselves?
I don't know. No, I think you sort of want to speak to how many people have you spoken to today? Just me?
Well, as I said, one of the among the early of the 231 conversations we planned.
So
if
you just spoke to me
year.
Today, if you want to speak
I'm speaking to some other people later, and we're planning.
Okay.
Over
well,
the
let's
12
say you
months.
let's say you speak to 2 people today, then you want to speak to 4 people tomorrow, 8 people to the next 8 because you want to keep on Dublin.
Yeah. So, and that sounds like good advice for some good talkability there.
There you go.
All right, Graham, massive thanks. I know you're a very busy person. I really appreciate your wise words and insights there, all contributing to the pot of understanding that we can collectively grow and be at a better place to answer the question, what does better look like? Thank you so much, Graham. Take care, and
welcome,
thanks again.